welcome to Forum Friday. Today I have Mark with me, and we are going to talk about the problems that are coming through from our Facebook group called Baking Industry Professionals. So, Mark, welcome. How's
Thank
it
you.
going
Yeah,
on there?
excellent. Great to see you again. The Facebook group is has a lot of activity. It's really good. There's a lot of interesting questions. We have one that there's been some various different comments and feedback on already. Is a gentleman who is looking to create an shelf-stable icing, and was asking a lot of different questions in terms of preserving shelf life and preventing mold and things like that, and seems to have some sort of chemistry background, but no understanding of the icing world itself, right? Because one of the things that we talk about so often and relative to mold growth, other than contamination, is of course water activity. And on your icing, you want to have water activity very low because there's usually not much water in there to speak of, right?
Hmm.
It's only to give a tiny bit of flow to the powdered sugar. That's all.
Mhm.
Um, and so being below 0.65 or zero point 0.6 on water activity really should not be difficult. The poster was asking about bricks, and bricks
Ooh,
really doesn't apply here
yeah.
because bricks has more to do with beverages and things to measure the sugar concentration
Yeah, where
within a
there is a
liquid,
higher
right?
amount of water in there.
Yeah, exactly. So because even the bricks on the, say, a high fructose corn syrup, if you were using that, it's going to be a 75 bricks because there's only 25% water in the high fructose corn syrup, right? Um, and so I'm going to also share with them a very standard base recipe that we would often use in the lab. And so
We have
basically
it. We
everything.
have it on Bakerpedia. Just look up on it.
Oh,
We have
so you can just look
tons
it
of
up on
formulas on
Bakerpedia.
that. Yeah,
Exactly.
just
Yep.
search it on
Yeah.
Bakerpedia. And I just wanted to add also to look at our water activity page. And on our water activity page, you will see the water absorption curve. Okay.
Hmm.
The water absorption curve pretty much says that mold growth is at zero point 0.6 and above. Okay. So if
Yep.
your water activity is above there, then that's a cause for concern. But
Hmm.
I want bakers to also focus on the gray part, which is zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 water activity. Pretty much means that your water is minuscule, like it's very little, right? But this
Hmm.
part is crucial for lipid oxidation. All right, lipid
Hmm.
oxidation happens the least at zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5. It
Correct. Yeah.
increases below zero point 0.3 and it increases above zero point 0.5. And this is
Hmm.
important if you have shelf stable oil-based frosting,
Hmm.
is you want as little lipid oxidation as possible because that way your shelf life of over 6 months, it's not going to have an off flavor, you
Yep.
know.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, what do you think? Do we still need to put in preservatives like antioxidants and chelating agents, BHT, TBHQ at zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 water activity?
No, not usually. And there's been a big movement away from TBHQ. Um, if anything, what some, and usually the preservatives are like that are also these days used primarily in uh, fats that are unsaturated, where you have a greater risk of oxidation because you just have so many more oxidative sites. Um, the only thing there that is then used a lot, or that is popular now today, is rosemary extract
Mhm.
as an antioxidant because
Right.
it looks simply quite much better on the label, right?
Absolutely.
And people don't
If
know what BHT and TBHQ are, and then they start looking it up, and they see these long chemical names, and basically the conspiracy theories and everything runs rampant after that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I for one, I don't care. I'll take anything with TBHQ and BHT rather than opening up something that smells bad. Well, that's
mhm.
just me, right? But as a food producer, manufacturer, you have to understand your distribution channels as well.
Yeah.
Lipid oxidation happens radically fast if you don't have the right packaging, if you have temperature fluctuations, if you have, the wrong packaging material. So you need to really be careful with these three things. Like, can
Yeah.
you, as a baker, ensure that this product is going to have the same temperature over shelf life for the next 6 months,
Hmm.
right? Quite
Exactly.
impossible.
And with all the
Quite impossible.
distribution, with all the distribution challenges lately, lack of truckers and everything else, I mean, if you're making a cupcake with a frosting in Iowa and you're shipping it down to Texas, in southern Texas, where it's still hot and humid even this time of year, you're still going to have to keep it in a refrigerated truck or something of some kind because the temperature won't stay stable. And that
Right.
instability of the temperature is going to add to oxidation, which
As long
produces
as
rancidity.
it
Yeah.
fluctuates,
Yep.
from a low temperature to a high temperature, there is going to be oxidation. And
Yep.
this is why huge manufacturers like Betty Crocker, Duncan Hines, all use, chelating agents and
Hmm.
what we call preservatives, because of the situation, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's really inevitable that those who are growing and trying to educate themselves on preservatives, that these chelating agents and antioxidants have to be used, just mainly because you can't control what's going to happen in a distribution chain, you know.
Yeah,
And
unless you want to open processing facilities in every state or something, right?
yeah, absolutely. When you talk about fat chemistry, oil chemistry, it's all about stability. It's all about minimizing free radicals. It's all about
Hmm.
keeping the oil in emulsion. It's a whole different strategy altogether.
Hmm.
So I wish we could talk more about that, but that's not it's not a huge part of our market. But
Hmm.
if you need more information on this kind of science, reach out to your food science department at your local university. Many of them would have a lipid chemist, and many of them would know how to preserve the system over shelf life.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
my advice.
and you can even reach out to AOCS, the American All Chemist Society. You can find lots of help there as well, and they are actually headquartered at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Nice to know.
yeah, yeah. And we have another two interesting ones that are more bakery type related products or baking process related. One where I got thrown for a loop a little bit in the early stage of the conversation is we have a poster from Algeria producing spring roll skins. And I got spring roll and egg roll mixed up in my head, and I kept imagining the egg roll dough that you sheet out and cut and things like that. But this is actually like a thin batter that is made into like a pancake.
A crepe, yeah.
So yeah, it's like a crepe, and so quite interesting that the one of the challenges that they're having is so she was asking a lot of different questions relative to mixing and things, and one of the things she's spending a way more time on mixing than would be necessary and probably using too much electricity. They're using an emulsion blender to mix about 20 kilos at a time, which would only take about 1 or 2 minutes with an emulsion blender, if that, to blend it all up in a bucket.
Mhm.
Um, Even at that point, resting it may not even be needed
Mm-mm.
because there's really not much gluten development. There's too much water there, right?
Almost, yes,
Um,
zero gluten development
yeah,
there.
I mean, some crepe batters that are low hydration or pancake batters, you need to let it rest a little bit because they start to form a little bit of gluten. and they'll be stringy otherwise. But I don't think that resting here would really be necessary.
What
Um,
is their problem, Mark?
well, they started off asking also again about preservatives, but
Hmm.
also that they felt that they were getting shrinking. And most
Hmm.
likely the shrinking is from the mixing too long because they were mixing for more than 10 minutes with this plenum.
Interesting.
It's an emulsion blender, etc. Essentially. So they're agitating it too much. Plus, they have only one type of flour available to them, which is like a bread flour. And so the suggestion has also been made if they have access to pastry flour, to a soft
Mhm.
wheat flour, to blend a little bit so they have a little bit lower protein. And so hopefully we'll hear back. So they have a lot of different things to go on. Suggestions also were to add maybe 2% oil to lubricate it a little bit.
Make
Um,
it
the
more resilient and flexible,
yeah,
like tortillas. Yeah.
and the levels of calcium propionate they have are great. They're not really having an issue. They were really just asking what level of CalPro should they be using, and the level looks good. Right?
They have to use CalPro. I mean, I don't
Yep.
know how you can get away from this, but from what I know, how these is sold in the fresh market, they're pretty much make
Hmm.
the day of and sold the day of. And then the people who actually use it, take about 3, 4 days to go through the entire stack. So you need CalPro in there because the water
Yep.
activity of these crepe skins are really high. So
Hmm.
it'll start molding on the edges first, and then not only that, the mold is going to you know um take the water, and then it's going to make things crack. I mean, once mold appear, it's like downhill from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and if there's any way to control contamination, that's the other secret, obviously. Not
It's
in
really hard to
Algeria.
control, Mark, because a lot of these are done at a cottage level.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and
She
sanitation
is
at a cottage level is just really hard.
she was packaging these for retail. So if she can at least vacuum seal it, that would go a long way, right?
That's true. That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
I have
vacuum
a
seal with CalPro, I think that will do the trick.
yeah, I have a connection in who makes gluten-free crepes, and that's what they have to do. They have to vacuum seal it,
Oh,
even with
gluten-free
Calpro, right?
crepes. That's
Yeah,
tough.
yeah.
If you can make gluten-free crepes, you can do anything.
I'll tell them that.
Oh boy.
One last interesting post we have that looking forward to hearing some feedback on the feedback provided is someone who is making a protein bar and looking to commercialize this bar and again asking about extending shelf life. So
Protein
the
bars. That's the
the thing
trend
is
right now.
yeah, and so what do you mean by shelf life? And in protein bars, there can be a lot of complexity. Of course, on the surface, the thing we often talk about with shelf life is mold. That's the visible shelf life,
Right.
if you want to prevent contamination. But with protein bars, there's so much stuff going on. Before getting into this person's particular structure, one of the things about protein bars is whether you're using soy or pea or whey or anything else is that as it ages, it absorbs the flavors. So the flavors start to become more and more muted. So you have to find a way to flavor it enough that it's not overpowering when it's fresh. But if you want it to last 3 months or 6 months, that the flavor is still there because the protein actually tends to suck this flavor right up and it doesn't release it afterwards, right? And
Not
so
really. I really do
you
think that phenomena is enhanced by oxidation, not just lipid
yep.
oxidation, but oxidation all around.
Hmm.
And the loss of flavors, anything to do with volatiles, has always got to do with the manipulation of temperature, heat,
Hmm.
um,
Flavor it as late
packaging.
in the process as you can.
Right.
If
So
there's, yep.
if you lose flavor or it turns flavor over time, highly likely that it's oxidation. So you need to put
Hmm.
on those little packets, whatever those little packets are,
Hmm. The
that's
oxygen
the good.
scrubbers. Yeah,
Yeah, to
yeah.
keep the flavor, or
And
I really
modify
don't
like
know what else you
uh,
can do.
uh, what's it called? The foil packaging, metallized foil, right? The metallized plastic, right? So they're not see-through. In other words, that's
Correct.
why
Keep the light
you
out.
see
Right.
all of these protein bars. They're not see-through bars, right? The
Right.
the kind bars that have the see-through window are not protein bars. They're just focused on nuts and chocolate and stuff like that, right? Um, and they're not as concerned about it because you don't want light getting in either, because light will promote the oxidation as well. Um, the other thing the poster has is that the bar is composed of three different layers. There's a
Oh.
crunchy layer, a chewy layer, and a filling.
Oh.
So it that makes there's a lot of stuff going on,
That
right?
is
So
quite a bit of a texture profile.
yeah,
I
so
don't think you can keep the crunchy for too long. What do you think?
you would have to put a barrier on it. So wherever you have to prevent moisture migration. So if the crunchy layer, let's for argument's sake, say is on top, then you will need a moisture barrier, some chocolate or fat or something that is coated before that next layer goes in, whether it's the filling or the chewy layer. That's going to provide moisture. So if you have this crunchy layer and something that has moisture in it below, the crunchy layer is going to suck it out. So you need that moisture barrier. And chocolate is a very popular moisture barrier because
Right.
of the
Oh,
fat,
don't put in
right?
any moisture at all. Use all
Yes.
fat.
Um, and then
It's
the
going to be
chewy
high
layer,
fat and high protein.
chewy layer then would need to be like using humectants like glycerin and
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that to keep it soft and chewy without having any water there, right? To
Yeah.
tie it all up. So that's the kind of thing. So
Yeah. The
we'll have to
best way
see.
to
Those are the
prevent,
kind of recommendations that have been made, and we'll see what
yeah,
happens and how things progress for them.
the best way to stop moisture migration is to stop putting in moisture.
Yeah. Hmm.
And what else do I have to add to that? I know this because I once worked on a multi-layered bar as well, and that was
Hmm.
my hard way of learning things. Is I actually try to market these, well, I would say student, and just didn't go on well because the biggest issue was the water, and the biggest issue was off flavors because of the water.
Hmm.
So that's the thing, is when you're doing shelf stable products, you really need to get that water down as much as possible, because water is like the foundation, is like the basic culprit for everything
Hmm.
that will go wrong.
Exactly.
And once you
And
have a
just
drop of water in there, that's going to go wrong. So take
yeah,
out all the water.
and it doesn't matter if it's in a foil or even if it's vacuum packed. Just because it can't escape the packaging doesn't mean the water can't escape the product. It will
Yeah.
still get out of the product and cause problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the reason why jerky lasts for so long, right?
Hmm.
It's a totally high protein, uh, monogenous system. It's just one product, one component by itself. It's protein, a little bit of fat, and zero water in jerky,
Yep.
right? Same with crackers. It's just
Hmm.
carbohydrates and fats and almost zero water in crackers. That's why
Hmm.
crackers can last a long, long time.
Hmm.
And same with waffle cones as well. It's just carbohydrates, a little bit of oil, and that's it. So
Yep.
if you want a shelf stable product, I mean, I think we need to put this particular tip or hint right front center of our baking industry professional Facebook page. Water is evil.
Yes, but
Reduce
water is
water
the baker's
activity.
favorite ingredient.
A sign that says reduce water activity, because isn't it true that what you've been getting all these months are just shelf life and preservative questions, Mark?
We've been getting a lot. Yes, that's been a lot of the discussion, right? And what what qualifies as shelf stable and things like that. I mean, there's other things that have higher water activity that have different preservative type systems where you can have a higher water activity and be allowed to have it as a shelf stable product. Um, However, it limits the shelf life of the product still. And there's a lot of other things you have to be concerned with to make sure that it stays safe to be consumed.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so but that's enough of that.
Yeah, that's enough of that. I'm sure we're
But
gonna get
anyway,
more and we're gonna say the same things. But for
there's a lot of
now,
stuff going on,
everyone should
and
just
but
go to the water activity page and go check it out. We wrote it
mhm.
for a reason. And Mark and I we will be available whenever our schedules allow to be on these pages. So we hope if you get to the questions first and you have something to add, please go ahead and pure mentor the heck out of this.
And
Okay.
our good friend Jim Little has been doing a lot of that
Jim's
as well.
awesome.
I mean, yeah,
Jim's
he's been
awesome.
fantastic. In
Thank
between
you, Jim.
renovating his hotel, right? So,
Right, right. All right, everyone.
but what have you been up to?
Oh, me, yeah.
Yeah,
So many things. Other than, catering to sponsorships and having so many baker views. I mean, the last baker view we had yesterday was on croissants, and there were hundreds of signups, 100,
fantastic.
over 100, not hundreds of, sorry. Over 100 sign up, and we were just so overwhelmed with the questions.
Hmm.
And the questions are there because there's so little that's out there on lamination, on the kind of flour we use, kind of fat, kind of procedure. So if you didn't attend yesterday's seminar, don't be disappointed. Come back next week and it will be launched for you to watch. Thank you, Mark, for coming to join us yesterday. It was
Absolutely, my
awesome.
pleasure. Yeah. One of
And
my personal passions.
yeah, and we recently also launched our paid learning modules called Baker Certified. And these Baker Certified courses are just $150 each. So the difference between a Baker Certified and a Baker Academy, Baker Certified, Baker Academy course is Baker Academy courses are sponsored and Baker Certified courses aren't, and
Hmm.
that's why it's paid, right? So I hope some of you will learn from these courses because we teach really fundamental things like flour quality, how to test flour, ingredient functionality, yeast functionality, the type of yeast being used, the type of dough systems being used. So I look forward to launching more of these in the coming months. And I hope if you have any feedback, Mark, you could give it to me.
Yeah, I think the Baker certified courses like are the way, and I've been promoting them on LinkedIn as well, is that they they offer even a little bit more focus than the Baker Academy in terms of the subject matter, so that you're not only a little more focused on the learning, but you have then a qualification, a certification, a certificate that you can take and say, in terms of furthering your career opportunities, not only to claim, yes, I know about flour, but here you could say there's a certificate. I've passed this course, I've invested in myself, and I've learned about this subject, and I've passed it, I've been certified. I know about wheat flour and the milling process and what's important to the baker on wheat flour. And that's very valuable. So that way you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to spend an entire week or something at some course that you might only get 20 or 30% of what you really need, although everything is interesting, but what you really need is only, say, a certain focused things. And that's what you can do with Baker Certified. You can focus
You
on
can
the
choose.
components that you need and get
Mm-hmm.
certified. And you can accelerate your career that way, so that If you're a cake decorator, pastry chef, you might not invest in the flour part right away. It may
Yeah,
not be as important to you, but there's other
the
things on fats and
ingredient
oils, on
part,
sugar
that's
and
important.
ingredients that
Right.
is really important to you, and you can get certified. So there's lots of great opportunities that way.
Well,
And
you
it's
are
really affordable,
you're
as you
you're
said, right?
really spot on, Mark. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Okay,
I believe
folks.
in it. That's why
Thank
it's,
you.
I wish this was around for me when I was 30, 40 years old.
Me too. Oh, wait, if it's around for me, then I wouldn't have created it. Okay, let's uh call it the day for Forum Friday. I hope all of you join us at the forums on Facebook and LinkedIn, and we will be back again next Forum Friday next month.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye.